So UFC 313 is now coming up this weekend, and unfortunately for me, I am coming off probably one of the worst cards I have ever predicted, to be honest. It's not the worst. I have had a very bad one, but it is one of the worst. I picked a lot of underdogs. The gamble just it didn't pay off whatsoever, so that is a bit unfortunate. Hopefully we can turn it around with UFC 313. UFC 313, in my opinion, it does look like a little bit of an easier to predict card than last weekend, but I don't want to say too much too soon, just in case I do totally fumble the bag again. But you know who's not fumbling the bag right now? Jacob from We Want Picks is absolutely crushing it. I mean, the safety parlay from Angelo, of course, did win again, and coming up this weekend is also LFA and Cage Warriors, which I will write about on the WeWantPicks.com website. If you use my link and code, you get 10% off your first ever subscription. Now, let's talk about the fights. Rei Tsuruya taking on Joshua Van. I will admit, and I will put my hand up and say this, I have been a Joshua Van doubter in the past. Now, in my opinion, I think it has come to quite a bit of just a lot of people really just racing him a little bit too highly. But I do think now at this point he has definitely kind of proven where he does sit in the division, and I do think that he does sit in a position to beat Rei Tsuruya, who is taking this fight on short notice. This is a prospect versus prospect fight. Both of these guys are still older than me, but it's going to get to the point where there are fighters in the UFC and both guys are younger than me, but not quite just yet, thankfully. Now, Rei Tsuruya, we know what he's going to do. This guy is a very good wrestler. I believe he's a junior under 21 freestyle wrestling world champion. Now, I could be wrong about that. I think he definitely is a national champion anyway in freestyle wrestling, and you do see it in his game because that's what he wants to do. He very much is another Tatsuro Taira type fighter, except I would say that he is less well-rounded, and I also do worry about the cardio a little bit with Rei, but from what you have seen so far in his career, it has been quite good, and he has been quite dominant as well. He did get by Carlos Hernandez. Now, that was not with any sort of struggle because Carlos Hernandez was able to defend some takedowns there and find his own success. And Mark Clamaco as well. I think this is kind of like the perfect matchup to talking about this fight because Mark Clamaco was able to defend a pretty significant amount of Rei Tsuruya's takedowns, and Rei Tsuruya's cardio really didn't look good in that one. He was breathing incredibly heavy on the stool, especially between rounds 2 and 3. And if you look at a guy like Joshua Van has proven that he does have good cardio and he can push 3 rounds in his last fight. Cody Djorden. Now, I picked Cody Djorden to win this fight because I thought that Cody Djorden did have more than 3 minutes of cardio. It turns out he doesn't. But everything that I was talking about in that fight and the reason why I picked Cody Djorden was coming true in the first round. We did see Joshua Van's takedown defense tested, and in the first round, Djorden was able to overcome that and get the takedowns. But I feel like this is a similar matchup as well in that sort of way where Rei Tsuruya is going to be shooting takedowns ridiculously often. And if Van can just defend a couple of them, I think that Rei Tsuruya is going to get tired, and he is at a big striking disadvantage here. Joshua Van is extremely undersized for the division, but he makes up for that by being very fast, and his boxing is incredibly technical. And another thing that he does very well with his boxing is he mixes in the body work, and that's going to be money against a guy whose cardio is already questionable, now fighting him on short notice here. So I'm going to pick Joshua Van to win this fight actually by finish in the second or the third round, because I do think that in this fight, as in compared to Cody Djorden, the striking difference is more significant, and I think the cardio of Tsuruya, despite Djorden completely gassing out, is there. I think Van can really start to mount some volume late into this matchup, and I think that he can get a very late finish. So I'm going to pick Van here. He's minus 170 on Bet Online right now. This isn't the belt order, by the way, but the next fight on the list is Curtis Blaydes versus Rizvan Kuniev. Kuniev getting a big opportunity coming off the Contender Series, and the thing about this fight is I know that everyone hates it. I don't, and I actually kind of expected this. Now, I didn't expect him to get Curtis Blaydes in his debut, but I did expect Rizvan Kuniev to get a ranked opponent in his debut, because if you look through his career, he holds a win over Renan Ferreira, who is a former champion of the PFL, the guy that fought Francis Ngannou, Now, there is a pretty major asterisk on this win here because let's just say Rizvan Kuniev was being a very, very naughty boy when he fought against Renan Ferreira, but nonetheless he does hold the win. The thing in this matchup though is I just don't really see Kuniev bringing something that Curtis Blaydes hasn't like been able to beat before. And I feel like the way that you beat Curtis Blaydes right now is you have to be a better striker than him and you have to have enough power to knock him out because Curtis Blaydes' chin has always and still is a little bit of a concern. Now, in the past, we've always been able to say, dude, the guys that have knocked out Curtis Blaydes have been the hardest hitting guys. Like, it's been Francis Ngannou, it's been Derek Lewis. Now we're starting to see Blaydes get hurt on occasion and get cracked a little bit. I don't think Kuniev can do that. The thing about Blaydes, though, as well, is we have seen a couple of losses recently, and in these cases, it has just been due to him completely abandoning his wrestling, which you just don't like to see. The thing that Curtis Blaydes had already been the best at in the past has been the wrestling. We've always kind of known Curtis Blaydes as the guy that can go out there at heavyweight and get 6, 7, 8, 9 takedowns over 15 minutes, get that control, get that ground and pound. Recently, he did increase his boxing. He looked good against Chris Dalkaus. That win has probably aged worse than any win possibly can in the UFC. So, you know, like at this point, it's like Curtis Blaydes, why aren't you wrestling anymore? I don't think Kuniev can knock him out, though. That's the thing. Blaydes has had good boxing. It has improved. I don't think Kuniev can knock him out. I think it's that simple. Now, whether or not Blaydes just goes out there and knocks Kuniev out, that is definitely something to be said. Kuniev does look to be a pretty tough guy against Renan Ferreira. Of course, he did eat some pretty big shots, but mostly he won that with pressure. I think if Rizvan Kuniev tries to pressure Curtis Blaydes in the way that he was able to pressure Renan Ferreira, Blaydes is going to be able to take him down. So I'm picking Blaydes. It's hard to pick a method. Like, does he finish him with ground and pound? Does he win a decision? I think Kuniev is better than a lot of people are giving him credit for, but at the end of the day, I'm not really that mad at Curtis Blaydes being minus 300. I just think there's better bets elsewhere on the card, to be honest with you. And I think one of them is Mairon Santos, because I do think he's going to get a knockout here. The line will probably be juiced, because Francis Marshall just hasn't really been able to step up to the UFC level. And I think that Mairon Santos, despite not really being able to prove it just yet, because he's only fought in the UFC once, and that was the Ultimate Fighter finals, he's a good fighter. He's a striker. He does stand very, very upright, which I think is kind of like a unique sort of style to him. You don't see guys with their chin way up in the air like that. I mean, that worked for Sam Patterson, but that's one thing I think you've got to worry about for Mairon Santos in the future, is if he is just going to take on a very powerful guy for this weight class. Something to worry about, but I just don't see Francis Marshall being able to kind of put the pace on him and just knock out Mairon Santos. I think the way that Francis Marshall needs to try and win this fight is what has brought him success against guys like, where was it? He did have a pretty good fight against William Gomez, but that was when he was wrestling, and then when he was able to beat, not Marcelo Rojo, Conor Matthews, he just kind of beat Conor Matthews everywhere, and we have kind of learned now that Conor Matthews just isn't really all that. I think that Mairon Santos has a very significant striking advantage here. I think he's powerful enough to knock out Francis Marshall, and as I kind of have said before, like, Francis Marshall just hasn't really amazed me yet. And I know that a lot of people are high on Mairon Santos, and I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not as high on Mairon Santos as I am a lot of other people, but I think that Mairon Santos definitely is a guy that can go out there and knock out Francis Marshall, and if he can, he's going to be a 15-1 prospect. The only loss that he's got is to Dan Argueta, who, when he was on this run, he was unstoppable. He beat a lot of really good guys on that run. So let's go with Mairon Santos. He's minus 380 at the time of recording now on BetOnline. Now we've got wide odds here. Carlos Leal is minus 600 against Alex Morono. Initially, I was like, oh, I don't know if Carlos Leal beat Rinat Fakhrinidov, but it was a close fight, and you could argue that Carlos Leal did more damage. It was a close one. Carlos Leal coming on short notice. He does look a little bit sus, I'll be honest, with all of the chest acne, but, you know, if Bilal can do it, I guess Leal can do it as well. And the thing is, with Alex Morono, he just disappoints me, you know? He's actually a really good fighter, and I've stood up for him so many times. And usually you can make the excuse Alex Morono only takes fights on short notice now, but I think just Alex Morono, I just don't know what he's doing with his career right now. because Morono's really good at grappling. He's a really good grappler that chooses not to grapple intentionally. Like, I swear he does this on purpose. He's fought some strikers recently, which he could have taken down. Like, he could have taken down Nico Price. I know Price is a good grappler. And then D-Rod, he could have tried to do that too. Where's the fight I'm thinking of? I'm thinking about the one where he got knocked out by Santiago Ponzinibbio, and he was looking good in that fight. He could have mixed in some grappling in that matchup, and he just didn't. Now, I know he was getting knockdowns, but Carlos Leal has proven right now to be a bit of a force at 170, coming on short notice against Renat, put up a very good fight, you know, landed some big shots in that one. Prior to that, of course, was with the PFL. Kind of a little bit odd situation there, but he did, like, knock out David Zawada in the first round, and David Zawada is a former UFC fighter. Didn't have the best run, but he's having some mixed success in Octagon, at least. Now, I think that Leal just goes out there and knocks out Alex Morono. We've seen Morono get knocked out a few times before. We've seen Alex Morono choose not to do what he is best at. Like, it just shocks me. And the thing about Leal as well is the reason why I picked Renat in that matchup was because Leal had never been tested before against a wrestler, like in recent times, that is. And he just did against Renat, and he looked good. And I don't think that Alex Morono can go out there and just attempt takedowns and be the wrestling force that Renat Fakhrenadov was in that fight. So I think that Leal goes out there and knocks out Alex Morono. Minus 600's kind of crazy, but I mean, Morono ain't going to try and take him down. It's kind of as simple as that. Ozzy Diaz versus Djorden Santos. I'm going to pick Santos, yeah, but the thing about it is this is the exact kind of fight that Ozzy Diaz wins. And the way that Ozzy Diaz wins fights is he loses until he wins. He kind of just gets the brakes beaten out of him until he makes a comeback. These two LFA fights post getting slipped by Joe Pyfer, and being Joe Pyfer's kind of like stepping stone into the UFC, into what Pyfer is now today. He was getting beaten up by Chuck Campbell in that fight. He was getting beaten up by Vaughn Lewis in that fight. And then, I mean, Ming Yang Jing just smoked him. But like, in these matchups, he was losing until he was winning. And I don't like seeing that. I don't like seeing the takedown defense that was shown as well by Ozzy Diaz. But the thing about Djorden Santos, I'll be honest, I picked Will Curry to beat him like an idiot. Will Curry was minus 400 in this matchup. Will Curry did exactly what I worried he was going to do, and that's cover up and just cower away against the cage. And that's how he lost, pretty much. I mean, not much you can do about that except just kind of cry, I guess, because I should have seen it coming. Nonetheless, Djorden Santos, pretty good boxer for the division, but here's the thing. I don't think he's all that. I do not believe that he's all that. Ozzy Diaz could knock him out. I'm going to pick Djorden Santos. Very, very low confidence pick. I just cannot really get behind this one at all. I mean, if Djorden Santos is minus 200, man, I just, like, why? What's going on here? I cannot find the odds. This is quite awkward. There is. He's Osman Diaz. Djorden Santos is minus 180. I don't like it. I think stay away from this fight unless you can kind of get crazy odds on an Ozzy Diaz KO. We can now move on and up the card to Brunno Ferreira versus Armen Petrosyan. Another fight which Brunno Ferreira could win. Armen's been on a little bit of a losing streak recently, but he has been losing to pretty good guys. He was looking good against Sharaputdin Magomedov until he got smoked by a double spinning. I thought it was called I don't think it was a back fist. I think it was spinning hammers because he didn't hit the back fist. He hit with the hammers, the hammer fist. But anyways, and then Vieira did sub him. But Brunno Ferreira is just kind of a tank. You know, he's got that judo background. He's a pretty short, stocky guy. He's going to come forward and he's going to try and knock out Armen, but he's just nowhere near as technical on the feet as what Armen Petrosyan is. But I still think for that reason, you can actually justify picking Brunno Ferreira. Brunno Ferreira knocked out Gregory Rodriguez, of course, as a somewhat decent-sized underdog on short notice, and I'm pretty happy to say I did pick Brunno Ferreira to win that matchup, but since then, it's been kind of up and down. Yes, this is a matchup that Brunno Ferreira could win. It kind of is the stylistic matchup that he would win against a better striker than him. But I think that in this case, I think that Armen Petrosyan can avoid the big shots, just be the more technical striker, strike from range. He doesn't have the reach advantage, but he's got a pretty long height advantage, which will come in handy with the kicks that Armen likes to throw. And Brunno, despite having that judo background, he isn't just shooting for takedowns all the time. I like someone like Rodolfo Vieira would. So I don't like Ferreira as my pick. I like Petrosyan as my pick. The odds are still pretty close in this one, though. -155 on Bets Online for Petrosyan right now. And it is, I swear it's like 35 degrees Celsius in my bedroom right now. Now we move up. Jalin Turner versus Ignacio Bahamondes. A little bit disappointed in the odds makers. I really wanted to pick Jalin Turner as the underdog, you know, because he is my pick. And right now, he's -110, -108 on Bovada, so a slight underdog on a couple of sports books. He might become the dog. So this could be my underdog pick of the card, really. And I do think this is a good matchup for him, man. Ignacio Bahamondes is very used to guys being shorter than him, guys that he can have the bigger range advantage against. And Jalin Turner 6'3" and is bigger than him. Like, I swear Jalin Turner has got to be the biggest lightweight in the division, in the promotion. I mean, maybe the biggest lightweight in the world. He's 6'3" and he's huge for the division, and he makes other lightweights look small. Ignacio Bahamondes kind of does, but he's got a different frame. You know, he's very thin at 6'3", whereas Jalin Turner, you can kind of see it in this profile here, has a lot of muscle to him, has a lot of power to him, and he will really be kind of like trying to get a big win back, because it wasn't that long ago where he knocked down Renato Moicano. And if he just didn't really, like, I don't really know how else to say it, just didn't embarrass himself by trying to walk it off, he would hold a knockout win over Renato Moicano right now. Renato Moicano just got a title shot against Islam Makhachev. How insane is that? You know what I mean? Before that, knocked out, I'm still calling him Bobby Green, by the way. That was brutal, and then, like, had that close fight with Dan Hooker. A close performance that is aging quite well, and before that, of course, was the Gamrot fight where Gamrot fought him on short notice. Ignacio Bahamondes is not going to shoot takedowns in this matchup. Yes, Jalin Turner does hold his hands pretty low, so Ignacio Bahamondes is going to have a lot of opportunity to land volume in this matchup, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think this could be an Ozzy Diaz classic, except it's Jalin Turner potentially losing until he's not anymore, because I do think that Jalin Turner does hit harder than Bahamondes, and I think that, I mean, that is a fact. I think you can probably just say that's a fact, but I think Jalin Turner knocks out Bahamondes. That's my point here, and I think you might be able to get him as the dog as the week does go on closer and closer to fight day. Now we move up to Bobby Green versus Mauricio Ruffy. I said I would call him King Green if he beats Paddy Pimblett, and he did not beat Paddy Pimblett. He lost in the first round, so he's still Bobby Green to me. So Bobby Green taking on Mauricio Ruffy. You can't justify Ruffy being -600 after that performance. I mean, against old mate. What's his name? Against Yom Top. You just can't. Was this UFC 311? Because I think it was Ruffy. I had money on Ruffy by finish. No, UFC 3. It was 309. Never mind. I had money on Ruffy by finish, and the odds were terrible, as you can imagine. But I still did it anyway. Anyways, Ruffy should beat King Green. Should beat Bobby Green. But Bobby Green, he's a tough guy, you know. Both of these guys, actually, now that I say it out loud, have tough striking styles for other opponents, because Bobby Green, he's a boxer. He keeps his hands very low, likes to move in and out, likes to kind of do, I guess, like the Floyd Mayweather shoulder roll and stuff like that to defend strikes. And Mauricio Ruffy very much does kind of have a Conor McGregor featherweight run karate style to him, you know. But what we saw against Yom Top is, I don't think that this guy's killer instinct is as good as I thought it was. And another thing as well is he just doesn't throw volume. I mean, that's the problem, because Green is a volume striker. Green will probably land more volume in this matchup, unless Ruffy kind of just starts doing something completely different to what we've seen in the past from him. But I still think that Mauricio Ruffy's going to be the pick. -600 is ridiculous. Like, this is disrespectful to Bobby. But like this is insane. -600. I can't justify it. I'm picking Mauricio Ruffy, but like, I just don't think that you can kind of just bank on him to win like 6 parlays for you, man. Like, I don't see it. I think Ruffy's good. He's got a lot of hype. I think he's got a lot of hype for good reason as well. Like, he does look like a very promising prospect, but -600 against Bobby Green, that's tough, man. I'm going to pick Ruffy, though. We've seen Bobby Green get absolutely demolished before as well by Jalin Turner. Maybe the chin will never be the same, but it wasn't that long ago when he just absolutely beat the piss out of Jim Miller at UFC 300. But I think Ruffy goes out there, and I think he does still get it done. And we got to Lemos versus Lucindo. I didn't think Lucindo won against Rodriguez. And maybe for that reason I'm picking Lemos, because I just cannot really justify picking a 38-year-old woman strawweight to win a fight. But like, I just don't understand. It wasn't that long ago that Lemos nearly ended the life of Mackenzie Dern. And now Mackenzie Dern's on a run. You know, like, I just don't know. I just don't know. It's just, I just can't pick women's MMA this year. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Nothing ever makes sense. Lucindo, I think she's a little bit overrated. Her striking's pretty sloppy. She's very hittable on the feet. She's recently started to grapple a lot more, which is very good to see, because that is how you're going to beat Amanda Lemos. Even though Lemos just beat the brakes out of Mackenzie Dern for 3 rounds, and as I said, like, literally gave Mackenzie Dern CTE. Oh, I just don't know. I think Lemos wins by decision. We should just move on. I think she does more damage. It's as simple as that. Gaethje, underdog. Reason why? A little bit unsure. A little bit unsure. He's plus 115 right now. Rafael Fiziev is minus 135. We have not seen Rafael Fiziev fight since he got injured against Gamrot. We haven't seen him fight for 17 months. That was a bad injury. Yes, the fight against Gaethje was close. Yes, a lot of people think that he probably won that fight in the first 2 rounds, but as I said, we haven't seen Fiziev fight for 18 months, and I think that's going to be a big deal in this matchup. You know, Justin Gaethje's been, I mean, man, dude, Uncle Gaethje, nearly old enough to be my father. Wow. But Gaethje's been preparing for a war against Dan Hooker, which, I mean, you can call it bias or what you want. I was going to pick Dan Hooker in that fight, you know. I think that Dan Hooker's been looking better recently. But Gaethje just, you know, dropped Max Holloway for the first time in his career at UFC 300 not that long ago. And Fiziev, like, yes, Fiziev's going to be smaller and faster. I think that Gaethje kind of just still is going to hit harder. And I think that's kind of I think it's as simple as that. I genuinely think it's as simple as that. Gaethje does like to close the gap in the clinch, and I know that Fiziev has those knees in the clinch. He has that, this and that. But Gaethje's still a pretty big guy for the weight class. He's a strong guy. He's got good uppercuts. I feel like I'm talking myself into picking Fiziev right now, but I just cannot justify it based... I just cannot justify it. I just cannot justify picking Fiziev based on the fact that he hasn't fought for 18 months. That's really the main justification of my fight. He was looking pretty good against Gamrot before he got injured. Gamrot, as we have seen, is going to be a tough guy for like 99% of the division to have to deal with. But I think that Gaethje, you know, Gaethje, you can't trust him to wrestle, because that would be a definite talking point of what he can do. You can't trust Gaethje to wrestle, so I'm not going to. This is going to be a striking matchup. It's now 3 rounds as well, which I think is pretty significant. Once again, Gaethje been preparing at elevation for a 5-round fight with Dan Hooker, where both of those guys were probably going to sacrifice like a lot of their body to really... Like, that was gonna be crazy. I mean, that's you can't replace Dan Hooker versus Gaethje, man. But I mean, Fiziev versus Gaethje, honestly, is probably the next best thing if you really think about it. But yeah, man, I think Gaethje wins, man. I mean, Gaethje's not Bobby Green. That's all I'll say. So I think that Gaethje goes out there. I think he sticks it out. I think he closes the distance and beats Fiziev in this matchup. Now we can move up to the main event. Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev. I have been saying this since the rumors of the fight happening. I've been saying it since the first call out of Ankalaev. I've been saying it since the fans have been calling for the Ankalaev fight. I think Alex Pereira does win this fight. Now, I have my reasons for this, of course. And a big reason is actually a reason I haven't talked about before. And I was investigating Magomed Ankalaev. I was investigating his fight against Thiago Santos, where he got dropped. And what did he get dropped by? A left strike, because he dropped his right hand when he threw his own left. Magomed Ankalaev is a southpaw. This is a big talking point for people that they like to bring up. Alex Pereira in the past hasn't looked great against southpaws in the UFC. And even in Glory, I know that people are trying to dig up the old archives there. Watch Magomed Ankalaev. Magomed Ankalaev's main weapon on the feet is his left straight, his cross, but it's his left hand because he's fighting from southpaw. Every time he throws this left straight, he will drop his right hand every single time without fail. And you go out there and you watch Magomed Ankalaev versus Thiago Santos, he gets dropped because he drops his right hand in this fight. Jan Blachowicz did more damage. I thought Jan won that fight, but you know, what do I know, eh? I thought Jan won that fight. I thought he won the first 3 rounds. What did Jan do? The leg kicks is the main talking story of the fight. Everyone likes to bring that up. But what was he doing before that? Landing pretty solid counters to Magomed Ankalaev's main weapon, that left hand that he throws. And what does he do? He drops the right hand. What is Alex Pereira's main weapon? It's his left hook. And I think that it's going to be open, you know. And the thing about Ankalaev as well that people always talk about is how he's going to be out there and he's going to be a dominant wrestler that's just going to shoot for takedowns like Khabib did and just throw Alex Pereira around. How many takedowns does Ankalaev average every 15 minutes? It's less than 1. It's less than 1. Ankalaev is winning a lot of his fights in the striking. Now, against Alex Pereira, I think that we are going to see takedown attempts. In fact, if I was picking Ankalaev, I would be banking on the fact that Ankalaev is going to shoot for takedowns because I just personally can't see Ankalaev beating Alex Pereira in a pure striking matchup. But what I can see is Ankalaev taking down Alex Pereira and winning the fight that way. But I've been a Pereira believer all the way through, man. Like one of the worst days of my life, probably the worst day of my life, aside from Aldo losing to Batista. I think that probably is number 1, to be honest. Number 2, second worst day of my life was him losing to Israel Adesanya. But you know what I did? I stuck it out. You know, I picked him to beat Jan. I picked him to beat Yuri. I picked him to beat Hill. I picked him to beat Prohaska. I picked him to beat Roundtree. I don't think there's many people out there that can say they did that. A lot of people were on Hill. A lot of people are on Yuri. A surprising amount of people were on Roundtree. And Roundtree found success early, but I think that was because Alex Pereira coming on short notice, and also I think he underestimated Roundtree. Maybe that's a bit of cope. I don't know, but another thing as well that I do worry about with Pereira is, what is he doing? He's in Australia. Like, he was in Australia a few days ago. So, maybe just doesn't see Ankalaev as a threat. I think that would be a big mistake. Another thing is, he's getting old. Artem Vakitov's on the come up, you know. Artem Vakitov's trying to take that belt, you know what I mean? Hey, and, I don't know. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, if you're picking Ankalaev, you're banking on him getting the takedowns. But Ankalaev don't wrestle as much as you think he does, man. Like, I know he's called Ankalaev. I know he's from Russia. Is he Muslim? He must not be, actually. He must not be Muslim. Because Ramadan has already started. So that would mean that he's fighting Ramadan. He must not be Muslim. Because if he was, then he'd be fighting during Ramadan. So, and if he is, and he's doing Ramadan, that means he's going to fight without eating. Like, during the day. Like, when the sun's out. So, I mean, that means he's going to have to cut weight. Without eating, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I feel like, dude, what? That just occurred to me. This fight's during Ramadan, so maybe Ankalaev isn't Muslim. I thought he was. But anyway, Pereira's the pick. I think Pereira does knock him out. This is definitely a fight which a lot of people are going to pick Ankalaev, but as I said, man, at the start of me talking about this fight, I've been picking Pereira the whole time. And I've been one of those people saying, he doesn't deserve the title shot. It was here when people were trying to say, like, off a no contest, a draw, and a win over Anthony Smith. Like, what were we doing, man? I think that Alex Pereira goes out there. I think he does beat Magomed Ankalaev. I think he knocks out Magomed Ankalaev. It would be the best win of his career. Hot take? No, I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think, because he was the favorite to beat Adesanya the first time, right? I think this would be the best win of his career because he had already beaten Adesanya before, quite a few times. Oh, okay. I picked him to beat Izzy the first time. That's interesting. It would be the best win of his career. I believe it would be. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. We're not doing poster review. My picks started getting worse when I started introducing poster review, but do better. Like, this is a bit sad. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next time.